abortion ban if he's elected in November. In an interview with NBC's Meet the Press, Vance said Trump has been very clear that he wants to leave the abortion question up to the states in order to focus on bigger issues.
Donald Trump wants to end this culture war over this particular topic. If California wants to have a different abortion policy from Ohio, then Ohio has to respect California and California has to respect Ohio.
This comes after comments from congressional Republicans, where they've indicated they would continue to push for a federal ban, even if former President Trump were elected. Houston rapper Scarface was hospitalized in the ICU on Saturday. The 53-year-old Ghetto Boys member posted a photo on Instagram. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali. I am Attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew. Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Kil Bashir, Andrew Rodeman, and Ryan Rhodes. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. This week, we'll be discussing the Democratic National Convention and will Vice President Kamala Harris win? Huh? I done told you. See, now y'all done flip. See, I told you. I did not tell you. I told you that they ain't gonna let him win. They just
looking that way.
Yeah, they can't let him win. I done told you, man. I mean, it's just, we think that the, politics in America is like civics class. But that's just not how the politics work in America. The politics is based upon, something different. Right? They still think that a lone gunman killed John F. Kennedy. That didn't happen. They still think a little young dude on top of a building, gave former President Donald Trump a pierced ear. Right? And we still believe in a tooth fairy.
Yeah.
Right? That's not how it works, man. I mean, it's different. But at any rate, man, so the convention, man, everybody was hyped, man. Yeah. It went well, didn't it? They put that on, didn't
they? They did.
It was very, very
spectacle.
Yeah. A lot. Who was your favorite? Who was your favorite?
I'll be honest with you. I did not watch all of it.
Man, really?
No, I didn't watch all of it. Man,
are you serious?
I did not watch all of it.
Huh?
No, I didn't watch all of it. I watched a few people here and there, but
who was the favorite few people you watched? I don't think nobody watched the whole thing.
No, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched the main person, which was Vice President Kamala Harris. I watched her because I think that's what everybody gonna bank on. All the rest of the stuff is just entertainment purposes and stuff like that. I wanted to see what the person had to say. I wanted to compare her speech along with what I hear from Trump. And I'm gonna tell you something. As a person, if I didn't know anything about either of them and just listening to how both of them spoke, she would definitely stand out amongst the two. In some parts of her speech, I even thought at some point that it was actually Michelle Obama. Just some parts of it.
Say you thought that? Oh, you thought it was coming from?
As though that she can be actually writing this. That she can actually be saying this. I mean, I believe that there was a lot of people that sat back and had some doubts about her. But I think she garnered up a lot of support from a lot of people because she touched bases on almost everything from the veterans to the abused women, so forth and so on. She touched on a lot of different levels, and especially that point where she gave the story as to what made her become a prosecutor. And I think that got a lot of votes within itself just from people because there's a lot of victims in the world, of course, And then I think but also I think that it's even because there was a lot of people that probably backed off away from her due to the fact of the war when she spoke about supporting Israel. So I think it's, I think that she garnered a lot of support from people, but then there was a lot of people that stand off. But I think that the people that are standing off because of the war, not necessarily is going to go for Donald Trump. I think that that's going to be the people that actually hold their votes.
Yeah. What you think? Who was your favorite?
Favorite too. I think Michelle Obama was my favorite. I think she might be the most like beloved person in the Democratic Party, like even over her husband. I think that she gave a speech that I don't think she could have been able to like give when she was in the White House.
Mhm.
Like she was basically talking about how much of a threat that Donald Trump was, and like how he was threatened by her and her husband's just education and just blackness. And she came out and said it, which was like a major thing to me. And she just gave, I think, the speech of the entire convention. And I think with Kamala, she just gave what was necessary, right? I think that this is just about like, getting people excited about things and like, keeping people interested and engaged on her and who she is as a candidate. I think she did a good job talking about the middle class. She did a great job talking about really cutting into just Donald Trump as a person. Like she called him an unserious man.
Yeah.
And basically was like this guy on this other side is nothing compared to me. He's not somebody that you should even consider. And I think that was a very good thing from her side to really sort of come at his neck the way she's coming at his. I mean, the way he's coming at hers. Like really meet him on his level, but also like still like remain classy. I think my biggest issue with her speech, if I had to give one, is she did not really address policy. And I think that right now I understand like getting people excited, but she really did not address anything she plans to do outside of the general politician. Oh, I'm going to lower gas and housing and groceries.
Got you.
So I really hope that she gets into that soon, especially when the debates come. I'm sure when the debates come, she'll have to, but I really would like her to focus more on that. But other than that, I think she did a great job and got people excited.
Yeah, I mean, do you think? I mean, so I didn't get to see all of it, so I'm not going to act like I saw the entire thing. But I mean, I think they accomplished what they set out to accomplish. I think that it was, they galvanized a lot of people. They held their own, and Michelle Obama, I mean, obviously, did a great job at attacking, Trump and really much, they play in his game. I mean, that's kind of what they did. They were doing the same type of. In fact, what was interesting is how he came back and said, well, they're always talking about how you shouldn't talk about people personally, but then they talked about me personally. I thought that was kind of ironic that he would even make a statement like that. But I mean, they rolled out of it with a whole lot of momentum and a lot of confidence. I think that people who were, I don't want to use the word on the fence, but I would say that people who were kind of like hoping that it went well and that they could co-sign it, I think that, there's no negative coming out of it. I think it was pretty much positive. And so it was a success.
Yeah.
Without question. I think that now rolling out of that and maintaining that momentum as we go forward, I think in September there's supposed to be some sort of debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Trump, which is going to be interesting. I feel like she'll probably do well just simply because I think she can definitely spar with him when it comes to the politics, and I think that she could definitely spar with him when it comes to the personal attacks.
Yeah.
And she's not going to be afraid to go at his throat. And that's what people like to see. And and I think that he's probably a little bit nervous about going at her, especially with You know, he definitely doesn't look like he has the same vigor and motivation now, looking at some of his recent speeches.
Yeah.
He looks like he's kind of like he's through with it. He's tired of it, which he
Yeah.
should be.
Yeah.
He needs to go ahead and sit down somewhere. But I don't think he really wants it at really at this point.
Yeah.
But
I think he shook up.
Yeah.
I think he seriously shook up because on one hand, he called Joe Biden out and he was, he had a chance.
Mhm.
He looked at him and said, "Look, this man is not capable of, going back in the office, so forth and so on." But I think that it really shook up the game when they put Kamala on the ticket,
Mhm.
because not only that, his thing is, I mean, I hate to say it, his thing is like, I can't lose to a woman, and then the idea of that going through his head have really affected him personally, where he becomes, okay, he coming out of his, well, I can't even say coming out of his character, because he's always been in that character of name calling and so forth and so on. But I think it aggravated him to a point where he's starting to say some things that, okay, that's, very, very questionable now. And what that does to people is like, you're not acting in a professional capacity. I wouldn't want you to be my president. But I think on the flip side of it, when you look at, and this kind of digressing a little, when you look at the liberals, right, and which side they actually going to take to, right? I think that whenever you're looking at the community of the LGBTQ, right, they are going to have a hard time because they're conflicted between, okay, is our rights going to be snatched away on one president, and then whether or not we're going to continue with this war. You see what I mean? In terms of who I'm going to vote for, am I going to vote for somebody that's going to continue this war, which we're totally against, or I'm going to vote for somebody that's going to snatch away my rights to have freedom of choice?
I don't think he's not going to do nothing about that war.
Nah.
If Trump was to become president of the United States, he's not going to do nothing different than anybody else.
No, but I think in their mindset, is anything that's different than what's already in place might have a chance of being done.
I think that basically, and what exactly did she say she's going to do on the war? What's her position?
She gave the same position that President Biden is giving, which is like, we're working towards a ceasefire.
Yeah,
essentially.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe she doesn't carry the same baggage about the war as Biden would. I think that clearly Biden would probably carry more baggage than Kamala.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But I think that if someone's waiting and holding and thinking that someone's going to get into office is going to make a huge, difference one way or the other, I don't think either one of the candidates will actually give people what they want as far as the war is concerned. As far as its war is concerned. So I don't know that, but you remember what I said the last time?
What was that?
They can't allow him to win.
The last time, the time before that too.
I done told you guys, man. Look, I'm telling you, man, and it even looks even a lot more suspect now. I'm telling you, he's not gonna. They're not gonna. And then also another thing. See, this is kind of what this is really the whole Trump situation boils down to. A culture war, a cultural. See, the thing is that basically Trump support is exclusively a people who are protesting against the status quo. He is more or less, he represents something, although he is not, they chose a strange individual to co-sign or to represent their interest or what they want. But there's just a huge culture war going on in this country, and people who are upset with the way we're going. Because there's some things that happen, to be honest, and I'm not going to talk about them on air, but there are some things that happen during the convention and some of the things that are going on that many people probably don't like, to be quite honest with you. And they're thinking that basically the way our country is going, You know, a lot of it is culture. A lot of it has to do with values. A lot of it has to do with things that, you know, the party is really representative of a lot of things that a lot of people might not necessarily personally agree with. And that is big. That's a bigger issue for some people, is that they just think that our country is headed in the wrong direction, that there's a moral decay in our country. The irony is that they're choosing someone who is probably one of the most less righteous people to co-sign that whole wholesome agenda that we tend to believe this country is losing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, I think the long and short of it is that, you know, I'm happy to hear you guys' input about what's going to happen and what might happen. I appreciate all of the comments, but I told y'all from the very beginning, they can't allow him to win. They cannot allow him to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They cannot allow. Do you know what would happen if he was president of the United States?
Again.
Again.
Oh man. Yeah, I could just imagine. Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah, straight chaos. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, you know, it's crazy. I mean, you got someone who is coming out of this thing. I mean, just even his conviction itself is just, you know, just come on, man.
Yeah, he's too unpredictable. So, you know, I mean, he's what they call it. He's a hothead. He's too unpredictable. You never know what he's gonna do, what he's gonna say, you know. And they, of course, they can't afford anyone to do that, you know. And then he has this mindset where, I don't know if you want to call it a God complex.
Oh, for sure. He's a narcissist, like
100%. Seriously.
Yeah. And I remember Kamala saying that, like, in her speech, she was basically saying that she was saying, like, you know, my entire career, my only clients has been the people. And she was saying, like, with him, like, his only client has been himself.
Exactly.
You know? So
I mean, they're telling the truth. I mean, I think that's the Democratic Party right now is facing a backlash primarily that people are just tired of the status quo and don't see too much really happening one way or the other. And let me ask you this if you guys you know, feel like you can even address the issue. And I'm going to go out on the limb and ask this question. What do you think about having a female president?
I mean,
it don't matter now.
It's you know what? It's never really mattered with me.
Yeah.
It's never really mattered with me. I think either way it goes, politics is politics. Yeah. That's how I see it. It doesn't matter if it's who's up there. And I believe that it's gonna sway, you know, in the direction what's best for, you know, and I don't even think it's saying what's best for the country, because politics sometimes is not, you know. Politics is politics, man. It's shrewd, it's evil, I mean, you know, it's crazy, you know, and that's why I try not to get so involved, because it's like when you do it, when you see this repetitiveness, when you see this, you know, this constant repeat, you know, we trying, and we expect and respect. It's like the boy who cried wolf syndrome, right? Where you expect something, right? And then after a while, you don't get it, you don't believe it. You see what I'm saying? And I think for me, this is just for me though. And so when I say it's politics as usual. So it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman in there. Politics going to continue. It's not. No, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I think that I'm very much a person who always wants progress, and just I am proud from a social standpoint of the progressiveness of this country. I feel like we are a lot more empathetic than we ever have been, a lot more accepting than we've ever been. Now, with that being said, I don't care that she'll be president. I think that would be dope. Great Black Indian female president. Now, I am curious though about how the world will see it, and how like it will matter potentially in like international relations, because this is the first time this will ever happen.
Yeah.
Like there'll be a woman at the table now,
Mhm.
and like I can sit here and say like the world is caught up to, you know, specifically like the United States, but the world might not be in that place. So I mean, I don't care, but it's gonna be. I think there might be some, you know, roadblocks along the way for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, but don't you think that people would, you know, look at that as just a figurehead? That's not the person that's actually, you know, pulling the. I mean, I believe that the country is ran by a conglomerate of people.
Mhm.
I don't think it's just one individual. I think it's that one individual is just a figurehead.
True, but that now figurehead is somebody I've never seen at this table before. You know, it's
Yeah.
somebody that I have to deal with in a different way. You know, like I mean, we know about like gender norms and things like that. Like you're not
Yeah.
gonna be able to talk to Kamala the way you might talk to George Bush.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a different thing. And like she's black, she's
And
a
George
woman.
Bush, and she might not talk to them the way George Bush
Exactly.
talks to
Yeah.
them.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
like all of that, those simple nuances can make a major difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know, I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Oh, here we
All right? I'm going to play devil's advocate. I mean, you know, I think that I think that we have moved towards a time period in our society where we have, um, you know, there is a lot of pressure to embrace individuals and act like gender and other things do not have anything to do uh, with what happens in our society.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are those who suggest that our going down the road of ignoring gender differences in our country uh, in the long run, and I'm going beyond just this whole thing with Vice President Kamala Harris, will also have an impact on our culture as far as potentially family and different things. So I think that what happens is it begins to be, let's just talk about, we're basically, there are arguments that gender is a choice,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so is it?
Is it a choice?
Yeah.
No.
Huh?
No.
Some people say, well, sex is one thing because it's about chromosomes, but gender is choice.
Yeah. Yes and
Huh?
no. Yes and no.
You see
Yes
what I'm
and no.
saying?
Yes and no.
Hey, you know, we going there. We on the
No.
other side of this, get ready for it. But then we're
Yeah,
going to turn around and
yeah.
say, you know, I don't believe
Yeah.
in this. But then, you know what I mean? We want those normal,
Yeah.
traditional
That's definitely coming.
situations.
Yeah.
And on the other side of this, there it's going to come to a head. We're going to have to eventually have these conversations.
Yep.
And some people are going to, you know, we acting like basically we act, you know, like it really doesn't. I mean, in the final analysis, under the current circumstances, I mean, you know, I would definitely, you know, support the party at this juncture,
Mhm.
right? I'm not going to say I don't want to. That's a completely different conversation.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether based upon the present circumstances, should we support Kamala Harris? Should we not vote for, you know, whatever? And I tell you, because we're talking about two different things. The reason why I believe that, you know, we're entering into that time period where people feel like, as you just said, that people are kind of like disillusioned with politics and don't like politics and don't expect much from the government and don't want to be involved, you know, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, we have to get beyond that and change the paradigm shift has to change when it comes to our involvement in the process, regardless. I think that, we live in this country, and I think that when we go out and begin to start criticizing the government, the processes, and giving up, I think that it doesn't do us any good, as a people. I think that ultimately, we look like hypocrites, that we live in this country, we take the benefits of the country, and then we don't really want to be involved in the process. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? It's like, I'm going to complain about the process, but me personally, I'm really not going to do anything about really what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's jury duty, whether it's just like we complain about the criminal justice system, but we don't want to sit on jury duty.
Mm-hmm.
We complain about what happens in politics, but then we don't want to vote. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We, if you really want one way or the other, get involved. You know what I mean? And I think that that's one of the problems that we have, is that, that's why I think personally for us, I think that's why we get in the positions that we're in, and people don't take us seriously. You know what I mean? Because how can you take someone seriously who on one hand, basically, criticize, but then you're not doing anything. I think it makes us, in the grand scheme of things, get involved, do something different, bring something else to the table, and figure out how can we collectively do something that's going to make some sort of difference. That's just kind of what I see it. To me, it's just like, how can I say this? I mean, the best way to articulate this without making a lot of people mad, is I feel like I'm as progressive as anybody else. I feel like that I'm as critical about our country as anybody else. But I'm the type of person that I like being about it and not talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have gone past talking about it. I think that when we go, when we get into the situation, I think that we need to figure out ways that we can really somehow make a difference, instead of just, does it really make any sense for someone that says, well, you know what, they ain't gonna do anything, so I'm not gonna do nothing.
But Zulu, there's different levels. To me, there's different levels to it.
Now, I'm not talking about you.
No. I'm saying in general, but I'm hearing what you're saying. And the thing about it is this: there's different levels to it, the way I see it. And I see it like this. I'm here within my community. I know what it's. I despise people that say you can't,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I know there's a lot of things that I know for a fact, for a surety, that's by design,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm not going to tell my children that this is by design. What I'm going to tell them is that no, we're gonna be beyond this design. We're gonna build ourselves up. We're gonna do what's best for us. We're gonna you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Not to be selfish, to be loving, to be caring, to be nurturing, teach them the proper morals and values, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now in the grand scheme of things, when I'm seeing that all of this stuff is by design, that doesn't mean that individuals is not going to support certain things that actually is being promoted. It's just that on their level, they're taking care of. In other words, like what I do with the youth, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to teach them that you can't do this or you can't do this. I'm going to build them up,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to teach them and I'm going to motivate them to be better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what nobody's saying that you can't do this, you can't be the president,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be that. On my level, I know what you're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Now, do I know that there are certain entities and certain forces just trying to prevent that? Yes. But I'm not going to teach that to the children. They're going to see it as they go along, and then as I teach them, then they teach somebody else, and they get better. They get better. They get better. You see what I'm saying? And I think I teach it from that level. So I understand what you're saying in terms of you can't get involved.
People
complain about it and stuff like that. I get that.
It's a disclaimer though. It's a disclaimer to what else the other thing I was getting ready to say.
Go ahead.
So the disclaimer to what else to the other part I was getting ready to say was that to think that gender has nothing to do with nothing, I disagree with that. I believe that gender does have something to do with it because I believe that this is the thing is that I know that my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and great great grandmother were very important, and this was not talked. This is not coming from the opinion of a man who thinks that he is superior to a woman. This is coming from a man who was taught about great women by great women, and they were great women based upon their role, right, and what they were able to do in the community. And I think that when we get to the point where, again, I did that as a disclaimer to say that I don't support Kamala Harris, but on the same token, I do believe that that gender matters, because I think that because I think that basically when someone says that, can a woman do the exact same thing that a man can do? And if this comes from a father of 4 daughters, no, they can't. A man and a woman are different. They're not the same. Okay. Right? And if I said that, I think it's more of an offensive to a woman than it is to a man. Because why would a woman want to be like a man unless a man is more important than a woman? And so I think that we, but we get away from that because we're scared to say anything because of being politically correct. And I think that this political correctness is what has produced all this backlash as to why people are, just doing all kinds of, weird political things and making weird political decisions. And I think that, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that everybody should be, should care about the family. Yeah. Right. And without a good solid foundation as family, then I think that especially us, we are going to have a problem. We're going to continue to have problems. The thing that's going to fix us as a people is deferring to that traditional family role that we much need. A man needs a mother and a father equally. Correct. Right? Traditionally. I'm not saying, I grew up in a single parent household, and I can tell you that my mother did a great job as a woman, right? But I believe that, and that should be an exception, but not the rule. And I think that we have to begin to start looking at that. And so did we talk about the family at the Democratic National Convention?
No,
not really.
So I'm telling you, if you want to begin, those are the things that we have to start talking about. Yeah. You know what I mean? I have, like I said, I have 4 daughters. I mean, one who is an attorney, and I always tell my daughters that, hey, you can be whatever you really want them to be. Well, I want you to be, but I'm never great. It's just like the one guy says, look, I remember he was talking to, this kind of a little bit off the subject, but he was talking to a school district about them having different genders playing on sports teams. And I think that he said, what was the statement? He says, I don't even let my sons rough up my daughter. I'm definitely not going to let your sons rough up my daughter. Right? Because I mean, we have to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we have to put a little bit of a stake in this thing, man. Yeah. And we have to kind of roll it back and and this is not about sexual orientation. This is not about gay and straight. That whole argument, there's 2 different things, and we always mix them up. You know what I'm saying? Because, We act like there ain't been gay. There's been gay people since the very beginning of time.
Mhm.
That's not really that. Those are two different things. And I think that basically they probably aren't really pleased with the whole idea of mixing the two,
Yeah.
right? So they're not the same thing. And that's what we do is then if you talk about gender roles, then you're talking about somebody's sexual orientation. That's completely not true. That you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I mean, like in the military, for example, people say, hey, the military is changing, it's getting real weak, and it's because of certain things. But look, you don't think there's always been gay men in the military? In foxholes?
Yeah.
Those are two different stories, man.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes they are even probably not necessarily happy with some of the things that we're doing. You know what I mean? It's sometimes it's offensive to them.
Mhm.
It's offensive when someone says, hey man, I believe in traditional family, I believe in gender roles, but no offense, my gay friend.
Mhm.
Why would he be offended? Why would she be offended? You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
just saying that basically we walk on eggshells too much sometimes when we talk about those issues. And then, what did you think when I talked about gender roles? That's one of the things came to your mind, wasn't it?
When you
Wasn't that
talked about
something? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people,
Yeah, yeah, and I thought, but when you pose the question, when you're saying, "What do you think about a woman being there?" Right? I was thinking that's what you were meaning in terms of like, is it going to be something totally different? Are they going to look
and
at
it may
totally,
be.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be.
And let me,
no doubt, it's
and
going
this
to
is
be.
what I'm going to say. And I'm going to tell you this. This is something that not as a man, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of women that feel this way.
Mhm.
That there are women they can't work for women.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I know
You
that.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There are women who says, you know what, I can't go in front of a woman judge.
yeah.
I would, this isn't just a male thing.
Mhm.
This is just a thing of just people understanding that, there's some, there's
Yeah.
some differences.
Yeah, and I understand that there's going to be a different look to it, correct, right? But I was just speaking from a political standpoint in terms of like what politics is going to be politics. That's what I was meaning. But as far as whether or not she's going to be looked at as different, we have a the figurehead as being a woman. Yes, it's like this. It's all around. I mean, you can go. I can send my wife over here to get her car fixed, and they're gonna charge her arm and a leg and tell her, "Hey, this is broke. This is." But if I go over there, they're gonna be no, sir, this,
Yeah.
because they understand. They're gonna respond to me totally different. I might walk out of there with a bill of $50. They're gonna hit her for about $1,000. Just the fact that she's a woman and she don't.
No.
That's just how it is, So I understand that. But I was talking about from a political standpoint. I think politics is gonna be politics, no matter who you put up there.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you think that if she's elected president, her biggest struggles and biggest roadblocks will be her capabilities or like the perception of her capabilities? Do you
The
think
perception of her capability.
you think so?
Yeah.
I agree. I was just wondering, just from the standpoint of like, based on what you said, and like, if like, her being a woman, and like you said, like women working for women, like they're literally going to be dealing with things for the first time that nobody in this nation has ever dealt with. So like, there's just different dynamics that will be in place. And it's like, I know she's competent. I know she has the educational background, but it's just like, people are going to have to start answering to people in a way that they just have never done before. And I think like, it's easy to say, okay, yeah, I'd be fine with that, but we'll,
But there's even going to be women, that's traditional women that's not in agreement with her being there. You know what I mean? There's traditional women that disagree with her even becoming the president.
Because she's a woman.
Because she's a woman. Yeah.
Joe says they'll respect her as soon as she reminds them she's in charge of the military.
I think the opposite. That's gonna be a tough one for people to swallow. That's gonna be a wild conversation.
Yeah.
It's gonna come to play.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's definitely gonna come to play.
And it may have an impact on why she chose who she chose as a vice president.
Yeah. And then correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then depends on how she responds to it. Whether or not she has to overdo it. In other words, to prove a point, because some people are like that. In order for me to get a message across that I am not, of a lower standard, I have to do something great in order to make people believe me. And let's hope that's not her stance on things.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think this is a question? So I don't want nobody sending me funky emails and stuff. But and then this is something that is really a real thing, not only again by men and women. And I think if I ask a woman this question, which I've had many of these conversations with women, let me give you an example. Do you think it's like judges? If you were, sometimes female judges are tougher than male judges.
Yeah.
In fact, there would be people who would argue that female judges are tougher than men judges.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing would come from district attorneys. The same thing may come from the issue of any so-called traditional male roles. Whenever there's women, they could be tougher. And I can tell you this for, whether this has nothing to do with it, and it may not have anything to do with it. I mean, it's the toughest judges I personally know, and I know I've been in front of a lot of judges, have been females.
Mm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so do you think there's a real thing behind that? You look concerned.
I think it is.
Huh?
I mean, I don't want to bring a blanket statement to it, but I could see the argument of them having to sort of show this level of, assertiveness that they, because of course stereotypes,
I mean, the same thing with, like, for example, immigration judges.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest immigration judges that I knew were immigrants who became judges.
Wow.
Like in immigration court, the toughest judges typically, in my experience, have been people who are immigrant themselves.
That's interesting.
That's wild.
Very
and interesting. Wow.
I wonder if that's like a trauma response. You put me through this, so I'm gonna.
Are they trying to overcompensate?
Yeah. But we've seen that happen though before too. I mean, culture-wise, we've seen it happen.
Or you have African Americans who may be tougher than somebody else who's not African American in certain positions of power.
For sure. I've done this before.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So I mean, sometimes there is this overcompensation because people, when they're put in positions that they are roles that they feel that they may not normally be qualified for, they overcompensate.
Correct.
Like, for example, if I happen to be black, if I'm nice to a black person, then somebody may think that I'm, just siding with a black person.
Correct.
Or, for example, if I'm a woman and, a woman's nature is to be caring, right? They say, and then I go in and I'm coming in like mother judge, then maybe they'll say, well, she's acting like, she's not tough enough.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes that overcompensation really, it becomes more of a problem than it does something that, than a solution.
Yeah. I think a lot of that overcompensation just happens because, like, word spreads, like if you're easy, and people are like, oh yeah, the judge over there, like, you better hope you get her, you know what I'm saying? You don't get this late, this amount of time. And like, I think that once that word gets around and you get seen as that way, you want to like reverse it and overcompensate for it.
Yeah. So do you think that'll become an issue?
I honestly think that I can't say whether it's good or bad, but I could see it. I mean, because once again, she's going to be dealing with something that nobody else in the history of this country has ever dealt with. So like, if she does fall into that, I can't really blame her, but it's only like if it comes at, from a negative response and it ends up hurting us or hurting her or hurting, so it's hard to really say. She seems very level-headed And she seems like she's in the White House now, but once you have that position in power and you the one calling the shots, like everything's different. So
when the Simpsons says she gonna be there, I'm gonna believe it.
Oh, she gonna be.
She
She
gonna-
gonna be in there. She's definitely gonna be the president of the United States. I'm pretty positive about that. But I mean, I think that those are, on the other side of it, I think that there are things that, we have to start discussing things that we really are. You're prevented from having candid discussions about certain issues.
Correct.
And I think that's kind of that's always been just the same. It's also the same thing about race. We basically are the dialogue that we have in certain issues, because of political correctness, we're not able to have those discussions.
Yeah.
And I think that now, especially now that we're entering this time where, there's very little discussion about values. It's more about rights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, where does that, I mean, sometimes, like I said the other day, I mean, there's got to be a limit to some of this.
Yeah.
I mean, are we just going to really, go too far? I mean, like I said, I mean, what if I say, I can say I'm a peacock?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
What if I say, man,
Well,
I don't want no real food.
Yeah.
I want some bird food.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
but see, you correct, because that has to be though. These are the things that has to be taught in school, because this is, I mean, when you look at our children, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where we kind of falter at, with our educational curriculum, right? They should be taught, not on, we hear about business ethics, but ethics in general, in terms of, family morals and values and things like that at school, because it makes them better human beings. You know what I mean? I mean, instead of all of the other stuff that they teach in school, and in fact, all of the stuff that they trying to merge into the school and teach these kids at a very young age. And I don't want to go into detail with that, but we know what it is. I just think that, at that juncture, they need to be taught, like they say, how to manage money, how to, be, proper children, how to respect their parents. And, those are the types of things that could be taught in there as well.
Yeah, I struggle with the whole like label and sex thing, just because, I'm one of those people where it's like, if you like it, I love it. And as long as nothing you're doing like really affects me in my household, I'm cool. Right. So if you say, hey, I'm a peacock and you want to eat bird food, I mean, as long as you don't bring any to like, the cookout when I'm cooking, you know what I'm saying? I'm not tripping and I don't have to eat it. Like, it's fine. Like, do your thing. So like, if you say, you went from, I don't know, Anthony to
be careful
to whatever, like, I don't know. Like, it's just, for me, if you want to be called something and you say, hey, I'm this, I have no problem calling you that.
Yeah.
But it's also like, of course you do have the biological aspect of it, right? So like when you get into like the which bathroom do you go to and stuff like that, it's tough. You're right. I do think we should have a conversation about it, but I don't know if the conversation will ever really hit a middle ground, which is
it won't. It's just like teaching it. I mean, in school, then the problem is going to be. I remember when I was in high school, there was something called FCA. Mm-hmm. It's called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yeah, we had that in my school too.
And it was always drama, because you had different people who had, who leads prayer. Like if, there was issues about certain people, like a woman leading prayer and shouldn't lead prayer, or certain, if a Catholic priest. And I mean, so even within even in the religion, there are differences and issues. And that's why I think that it's not going to be as harmonious as we probably think it would be if we're able to teach certain things in school. Then, somebody's going to be up there, because then the problem is who's teaching it.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you really want to try that?
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, right now, it might be somebody that we may not want to be trying to like drop ethics on our kids. So that becomes anyway. So Joe says gender meaning something different than sex is a newer concept according to Google.
Yeah,
it is. So I mean, it's a lot, and I think that coming out of this, and honestly, I did not really plan to go down this road when it came to talking about this situation because I think that we've talked a lot about it. So you know, but I do believe that's one of the issues, and surprisingly, it hasn't came up very often. You notice that we really haven't, but I
Yeah,
do
we
believe,
haven't.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
do believe that you know, I think that it would be when you're setting at, you know, when you're sitting at the tables and she comes in and she's in with these international leaders talking about certain things, and sometimes I mean obviously she may have, you know, because I know what you call it sat at the table with some man. What's her name? Clinton's wife, Hillary.
Hillary,
And
yeah.
she was, the head of the Department of State, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, she did her thing. What did it say? Black man for Trump 2024. Kamala is for LGBT and liberal women.
Kenny going hard.
Yeah. Yeah, Trump.
Whoever
Trump
Kenny is.
2024. The streets is rocking with Trump.
All right, Kenny.
What's that mean?
I don't know what streets Kenny on, but hey, do your thing, brother.
But yeah, so but it's going to be interesting as we get on the other side. I think that we are going to have that, and I think that's one of the things where Trumpers and people against this particular, some of it makes sense. I'll be honest with you. I mean, this whole thing about we're going down a road of cultural issues, and the Democratic Party is a little bit too liberal, and now it's a danger to our society, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there is, there are some extremes on that,
Hmm.
but I mean, there's some things for us to consider as we're going along. I got a project in place that's going to address that. I don't want to put the project out here now, but it is going to be a project that I got going on that's going to really address this in a more deeper way that I'm getting ready to launch. But I don't want to spoil that surprise right now. But yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, I think that next week we're going next week is what, Memorial Day? No, not Memorial
Labor.
Day. Labor. Huh?
It's Labor Day.
Oh, I don't think it's Labor Day. I feel
Labor
stupid now.
You got me looking now.
What's September the 2nd, Joe? Huh? That's Columbus Day. September the 2nd, ain't that Columbus Day? Right? No, strike that. September the 2nd is Labor Day.
Labor Day.
October the 14th is Columbus Day.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it is Labor Day. Nowadays, every day is Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody working right now. They don't want to work.
They don't want to work. Yeah, nobody don't want to work, man. Want the handout.
It says if you notice the young black males with influence or with wealth, etc., all are rocking with Trump. That's what Kenny said.
That's what Kenny said.
I mean, I like I said, I don't know where Kenny's at or what Kenny's looking at, but hey,
I see it on I see a lot of people on social media rocking that way, but it is what it is. You'll be surprised with the same results. So,
I mean, I think that I've definitely seen like people, and this is based off of his last, presidency. He does work for people with money. Like like Trump, like he's gonna help people who have finances similar to his.
Yeah.
Like he's always gonna prioritize them because he feels like they had. I mean, he's the one. Those are the people that he's been rubbing shoulders with, for years. So I get that standpoint, and I think that a lot of people look at him from a pure
I ain't gonna say that on the air.
financial standpoint. So yeah, I mean, I understand people with money for sure.
No, I don't think we should say that one.
Yeah, let's not do that one. Let's not do that one.
But yeah, man. So it's interesting where we are, man. I mean, and what we're what's going to happen. That's what I'm looking at more. Is I mean, how do you feel about the future of this country?
Doubtful. Scary.
I'll be real, like my
You feel better? Oh, really? Why? Oh, Kamala? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't really know. And I know like that's sort of a terrible answer, but from a social standpoint, I don't feel great. I think like I said, over the last year or so, I've really realized how divided we are as a people and how just not smart a lot of people are. And smart people will get you killed. I mean, like dumb people will get you killed. Like they really will. And I see that in a lot of different aspects. And I know like the presidency and like all that stuff. Like, of course that matters, but I think I'm more worried for us as a people in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any president's going to change that, but I do know it would look worse under Trump. And I think it would be accelerated under Trump.
My thing is I want to feel hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
I really do want to feel hopeful because I think that's that's what I want for, I want this peace. I want this, I want my kids to grow up in a place where it's peaceful and in a country where they don't have to worry about so much, and I think that we've been living this way for so long, we become so complacent. But I think that at some period in time for me, I just don't want to not be ready to accept whatever happens when it happens. So they say, you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready, that type of mentality. So I think for me, it's doubtful, man. It's scary.
Well, this is my take is this. I think the problem is that although we're going towards this so-called progression, I think it's fake progression. So how is it that we can, some of the most unempathetic, diabolical people are people who try to take on this persona of progression. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's disheartening. Is just because someone says that they are a victim or that they are some sort of, in a particular group that's being oppressed, they don't have no empathy for nobody else. So it's not like although we're getting more progressive, we don't care as much about each other.
Correct.
Than we did before. And that's what I miss.
Yeah.
But at any rate, we'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. Until that time, stay blessed.
Express 106. 106.5 FM. KCAA, Southern California.